All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started as people continue to join. Thank you for hopping on during your lunch to learn a little bit about MAGSA's Proposition 218 acreage fee renewal. We're happy that you're here. The whole team is here at the ready to go over the purpose behind this. Before we get too far into the content, I want to go ahead and let our interpreters who are online let folks know in the audience how they can access our Spanish and our Punjabi interpretation services. So I'll hand it over to them.
Thank you very much. Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos o buenas tardes. Queremos informarles que tenemos interpretación simultánea al español para esta junta. Tenemos español y Punjabi. Si usted desea escuchar la junta en español y se unió con una computadora, usted va a ver un icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Selecciónelo y seleccione el canal de español. También puede seleccionar donde dice silenciar el audio original o mute original audio para que solo escuche una voz a la vez. Si usted ingresó con un teléfono móvil o una tableta, sus opciones van a ser diferentes. Toque su pantalla, va a buscar los 3 puntitos que le aparecen abajo con la palabra más o more. Seleccione interpretación de idioma, después seleccione español, silenciar el audio original y por último el botón que le diga listo, done o finalizado para que nos escuche completamente en español. Thank you very much.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ, ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਹਰਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ ਹੈ। ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਵਿੱਚ। ਅਸੀਂ ਜ਼ੂਮ ਲਈ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਫੀਚਰ ਔਨ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼, ਸਪੈਨਿਸ਼ ਅਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਵਿੱਚ। ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੰਪਿਊਟਰ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਨੀਚੇ ਗਲੋਬ ਦਾ ਸਾਈਨ ਦਿਖੇਗਾ। ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਨੀਚੇ ਸੱਜੇ ਹੱਥ ਤੇ 3 ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਦਿਖਾਈ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਸਨੂੰ ਸਿਲੈਕਟ ਕਰੋ। ਜੇਕਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਸ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟਰ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਵਕਤ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਆਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਊਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ ਜੀ।
Wonderful. Thank you. A brief overview of today's agenda. We'll be talking about MAGSA overview and a progress report. A little bit of background on why we're talking about what we're talking about today, what MAGSA has coming up in the future. We'll go over just the logistics and information about the Prop 218 fee renewal, talk about MAGSA's grant report, some of the money that MAGSA has brought into the local area to offset its cost, and then finish off talking about the value of the Prop 218 fee and what it brings to the locals. And before we get into that great agenda, some Zoom housekeeping. Wanted to let everyone in the audience know that their video and microphone is turned off. So you can see and hear us, but we cannot see and hear you unless we unmute you for the Q&A time. This webinar is being recorded in English and in Spanish and Punjabi and will be made available online on MAGSA's YouTube. We'll also email that out along with the PowerPoint slides. If anyone has any technical difficulties, we ask that you use the chat feature in your Zoom menu, and we will respond and give you any Zoom technical assistance that we can. And then for questions and answers, we're going to go ahead and address all questions at the end of the full presentation, but you can drop your questions in at any time. So if you think of a question in the middle of a presentation, you don't want to forget it, you can use the Q&A box also in your Zoom menu to type in that question. We'll see it, we'll read those out loud and respond verbally at the end. And that's all I have. I'm going to pass it off to General Manager Matt Hurley to do our welcome and introductions.
Well, good afternoon. Once again, I am Matt Hurley, the General Manager for McMullen Area GSA. Once again, another pleasurable afternoon to talk about good forward-looking items for McMullen as we move forward in our quest for sustainability in the King Subbasin. Today, we're joined on this call by several folks. Crystal Tufingshan, who just recently became the first Deputy General Manager for McMullen Area GSA, coming over from a storied career at the Kings River Conservation District and willing to kick in here and really not kick us up a notch for our future. We have Allison Lahobitz from Lahobitz and Singh, municipal consultants. We have Allison again. She was here 5 years ago and provided great service to McMullen when we initially enacted our Prop 218 election, and is back again to experience the second round. We're happy to have her. And of course, we have Ashley Goldsmith and Rebecca Quist, our crack outreach and education pair, and Brianna also with them from PMP to make sure that all this goes smoothly and efficiently behind the scenes. So looking forward to the rest of the presentation. All right, so for those of you, if you're new, McMullen area, again, was formed in 2017, is about 120,000 acres in western Fresno County, right along the Kings River North Fork and just south of the San Joaquin River. McMullen is one of 7 GSAs in the Kings Subbasin, and we are tasked as the only GSA within the subbasin that is groundwater dependent, with about 91,000 acre feet of annual overdraft to retire as part of our commitment to the subbasin. Our 5-member board is made up of Brian Pacheco, Don Cameron, John DeGroot, Errol Namvar, and Matt Abercrombie, all of whom you probably know. What we're doing for sustainability is a very positive approach. We're looking for innovative solutions and partnering with our landowners to reach our balances, our middle of the road, that great pocket that will allow us to be sustainable without losing any of our valuable agriculture. That's built around the public interest in our landowners. We need to be viable. We need to be able to have a future. We don't look at this as a negative prospect. We look at this as a tremendous opportunity to enhance not only MAGSA landowner benefits, but also the Kings River and Kings Basin benefits. We will work with our regional partners. We fully plan on having all of them involved in all of our projects and programs. And we have a long-term strategy for this approach that will take us into 2040 and ideally sustainability. So far, we have done well as a subbasin. The groundwater sustainability plan for the Kings Subbasin, along with Westside, was one of the 2 approved in Fresno County. Some folks south of us were not as fortunate, but I actually believe they will be quick to correct those deficiencies, and the entirety of the Tulare Lake Basin will be well served. We've adopted sufficient board policies, rules and regulations, and effective groundwater management for our area. We have over 90% of our known wells within MAGSA registered and prepared for meters and telemetry in the near future. We completed our water marketing study that will allow us to create a platform in the near future to be able to trade inside of MAGSA for maximum water efficiency year to year. We are actively pursuing our McMullen expansion project. We are now 90% on that project design. We're waiting some approvals for the NRCS, but we expect that a real possibility exists that we could go to construction on another 12 miles of the expansion of the Terra Nova project in the fall. On-farm recharge university, the cohort 0 is now complete, a rousing success. I had the pleasure today of talking to the Water Education Foundation about on-farm recharge university, and they were amazed at the concept, and were very jealous of our landowners for having access to such a great experience and great learning experience. And of course, last but not least, our baby, Aquaterra Water Bank, is feasibility study is complete. We're just cleaning up the last part of our environmental review and looking very forward to moving into the actual design and construction phase of the very, very important water bank. That is the secret to not only our own success, but also the success of the subbasin and the region going forward in the SGMA world. Where are we? We just finished our 5-year, we just finished our first of the 5-year periods. We have to start looking at going ahead and taking care of the next 5 years. We have to update our GSP for a a 2025 update. We're just in the process of developing the platform for our data management and our well metering and measurement policies and implementing programs. We'll talk about that a little more later. The McMullen expansion project is obviously, as I just said, is ready to go. Aquaterra is coming along nicely, and all of those other items are really just kind of merging in and really adding luster to a very shiny future for McMullen. And with that, that is the background. You know a lot of that. The questions here today, though, are about our Prop 218 fee and its renewal. And to talk about that and give you a little bit of update on her analysis is Alan Lahowitz from Lahowitz and Singh. Allison?
All right, thank you, Matt. The previous fee study was adopted in 2018. And so we've conducted an update to take MAGSA through the next 5 years of its financial plan. So that would be through fiscal year 2028. And these fees are needed to continue to fund the operations of the GSA, including ongoing groundwater sustainability planning and basin monitoring activities. And the benefit of doing the fee plan is that you're avoiding the costs of the State Water Resources Control Board coming in and applying fees of up to $195 per acre. And MAGSA has been extremely successful in maintaining its cost structure and pursuing grants and other funding sources that have precluded the need to raise the fees. So instead, we are proposing that the next 5 years be a continuation of the existing fee structure of $19 per acre. So there's no cost increase, it's just a continuation of the existing $19 per acre fee. Next slide, please. So the fee structure is regulated by Proposition 218. That's the governing statute for water-related services and fees in California. The fees must be based on the reasonable cost of providing service. So what we've done is we've analyzed McMullen's financial plan over the next 5 years, looked at actual budgeted categories and developed the total cost of the GSA operating over the next 5 years. And then another requirement of Proposition 218 is that the fees must proportionally recover costs from ratepayers. So that basically that means the fees have to be fair and reasonable. So the primary benefit of the GSA's function is the representation at the state level that you are actively managing your groundwater basin. So it is more of a regulatory or administrative function. And so we feel that's appropriately charged on a $1 per acre basis. All the revenues collected are, collected by MAGSA and used for the benefits of the ratepayers. So if there happen to be excess revenues in excess of the operating budget, those funds would be retained and eventually used for ongoing MAGSA operations or projects at a later date. Prop 218 also has a number of procedural requirements. The first is that a notice of public hearing to consider the rates be mailed to all affected property owners. And so that was mailed out last week. So I hope everyone on the line has received their copy of the public hearing notice already. Landowners affected by the fees have the right to submit a written protest. And at the public hearing, MAGSA will collect and review and tally the written protests. MAGSA will also take a public comment. Any affected landowners have the right to give verbal comments to the board of directors. And then at that public hearing, the board will tally the protests. And if there is a majority of protests, so if 50% of affected landowners submit that written protest, the fee cannot be adopted. Absent that majority protest, the board of directors can adopt the fee, and the fee would be effective for the next 5 years. And it's important to note that the $19 fee on the Prop 218 notice is the legal maximum fee. So if expenses are less than anticipated and the fee doesn't need to be as high as $19 per acre, the board could adopt a lower fee if the financials pan out without another big protest process. Next slide, please. So we wanted to give a brief overview of the cost of service that we analyzed to support the fee structure. We looked at the various budgeted line items and categories of operations that MAGSA conducts. So the total budget is about $2,175,000 per year. And the potential categories of service include administration, professional services, so that's engineering, hydrogeology, things like that, monitoring and implementing the GSP, so groundwater monitoring. And then we did include some reserve and contingency. This is an evolving regulatory field at the state right now. So we want to make sure that we are accounting for any unknowns, any changes in how the state is administering its regulations, as well as any potential legal contingency as well that might be needed for any legal challenges that may arise. Next slide, please. So ultimately, the fee calculation itself is fairly simple. It's the total cost of service, which is the estimated annual budget, divided by assessable acres within MAGSA's service area, which equates to a fee of $19 per acre. And parcels of 2 acres or less are not subject to the fee. Those are considered de minimis groundwater users. Next slide, please. So to wrap up with next steps, it's our schedule. The Proposition 218 notice of public hearing was mailed to all affected property owners last week. Throughout May and into early June, this is the Proposition 218 waiting period. There's a required waiting period of 45 days. So we're in that waiting period now, and MAGSA will continue to conduct outreach to the landowners. On June 7th, we'll have the public hearing at the regularly scheduled board meeting. And at that meeting, that is where landowners have the opportunity to give verbal public comment to the board. And that will be the meeting where we collect all the final protests and do the tally of the majority protest tabulation. And then absent majority protest, the fee can be adopted, and it would go into effect July 1st, which is the GSA's fiscal year. And then it will be placed on the property tax roll and will be billed along with other, county taxes. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation. And so next, Crystal will give us the grant report.
Okay, this slide is showing you the grants that have been awarded to MAGSA, and I'm just going to briefly highlight about each one of them for you. So the first one is a $192,000 water marketing strategy grant, and the funding from this grant allowed for a thorough evaluation of groundwater marketing, and it produced a roadmap for setting up and implementing groundwater trading specific to the conditions in MAGSA. The board can decide in the future if they want to do this project, if they'd like to pursue it to give landowners more operational flexibility with their groundwater. The next one is a $75,000 small scale water smart grant. And under this grant, MAGSA has teamed with the micrometer company to install flow meters, pressure transducers, and remote telemetry units on each of the 23 representing monitoring wells located in the MAGSA boundary. So these wells are part of the King Sub-Basin network of monitoring, and the data collected from these wells will be used for logging or required SGMA reporting information like groundwater elevation. The next are 2 grants we received for the McMullen expansion project. There was a $7 million grant from the Natural Resources Conservation District of Services, and this was a Raisin City Water District grant. The next was a $10 million State Water Resources Control Storm grant. So each of those are helping with the expansion project. The next one was not a funding grant. It was a partnership with Fresno State. And this was a collaboration to conduct a study to create a database to help determine MAGSA's water usage based on evapotranspiration, or ET, and actual cropping patterns. So the study is in its third year of a 3-year project, and we are now continuing to investigate potential grants with Fresno State. Then we have a $5 million Equip Water Smart grant, which I know we just worked on recently. And this grant provides a $1 million funding pool specific to MAGSA landowners for every year over a 5-year period. So examples of eligible projects under this grant include water delivery, automation and monitoring, irrigation water management and conveyance, and sprinkler irrigation systems. So we've just completed the second year of this grant, so we have 3 years remaining. And finally, we're very excited because we just learned that we got this $2.8 million Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart grant. And what this grant will do, it'll pay landowners more than 50% of the cost of meters, telemetry, and installation of the equipment, and the first year of data reporting from the field. So you may recall or are familiar with the fact that MAGSA board has an active policy to have all meters with 2 acre-feet or more produced annually to be metered by 2025, and to have meters by 2025. So this grant will mitigate the costs of this requirement for individual landowners. So I just want to conclude to say that we'll continue to pursue grants on behalf of our landowners to mitigate any costs related to the measures, the groundwater sustainable measures that we enact here at MAGSA. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Matt, who's going to tell you about the value of the 218 fee.
Okay. We, as you was indicated by Allison, the main items that we're looking for this fee to cover are, of course, the agency administration. That's everything from any of the salaries or the contract amounts for the management team, and or any of the rent expenses and all those things that add up to just keeping the doors open and the lights on in our offices year in and year out. Professional services are really important. Legal, we get continuous legal advice from Ellison Schneider, our corporate counsel that has been working with us since day one. They're integral to a lot of the items that we're dealing with, including our water rights applications and other projects that we're planning that need their help. It, of course, takes care of our engineering services. Provost and Pritchard continues to provide those services for us, and of course, our well-named author of our groundwater sustainability plan, Lynn Groundwater Moeller now, but if you change one of those letters, it's Lynn Groundwater Modeler. So it's pretty close even. But anyway, groundwater sustainability plan revisions and 5-year update are being taken care of by Lynn Groundwater on a continuing basis. So that very, very good team remains intact. And we absolutely believe that our 5-year update will be every bit as successful as our first attempt at a groundwater sustainability plan, as will the rest of the plans within the basin. Some grant writing, of course, Crystal just went through our list. It's a nice list that adds up to over $25 million. That's important, but that's about $5 million a year. And in our fee here, we're only bringing in $2 million a year. So we hope to maintain that 2-to-1 ratio of outside monies coming in to assist and try to keep that cost, that landowner cost, down to the bare minimum. And that'll be a big focus as we move forward. Key project development, that means all of our Sigma solutions, all of the things we're trying to do here to reach sustainability. This will allow us to do the planning and preparation for entering into the construction of some of these projects and acquisition of some of the right-of-ways and so forth. It does not intend to pay for any of the construction. That'll be under different financing arrangement. And in the event that we need to have landowner participation, we will be back to fully explain that to you. But this is definitely just for planning purposes at this point. And then last but not least, especially with Crystal coming aboard, we'll start to focus a lot of our attention on legislative advocacy and some government relations items. State of California continues to legislate. They have not gone out of business. They have not gone to sleep. And they're looking at a series of bills this year which could radically affect water rights and the implementation of the Sigma legislation itself. So we will continue to watch that through and with Crystal and with some partners in the basin and the region to make sure that MAGSA landowner rights are protected. And last but not least, on this slide anyway, is the monitoring and Sigma implementation. It is our intention to fully outfit those 23 wells and have them up and running and be able to have monthly and or more regular reports on those. Under the requirements of Sigma, the basin has to report a couple of items that just are not negotiable. One is the elevations in the wells in the fall and the spring, and the other one is a total extraction number for the entire basin. So our monitoring portion of that, our 23 wells, will be critical in making sure that we do our part for monitoring the progress of the subbasin. But for us, as Crystal referenced, we did pass a policy that will require that all wells be metered by 2025. We don't like to come up with regulations that require our landowners to pay 100%. So we've been hard at work trying to come up with a way to assist in getting the cost of that covered. And this $2.8 million grant is a godsend. I'm so happy to have gotten that. It's recent. I know folks are interested right away to buy their meters and get their credit. It takes about 6 months to get this thing going, but we'll let you know when we have the process all established with the Bureau, and we'll let you know just as soon as we're able to provide the monies out to our landowners. Thanks. All right, what's not included? As I mentioned a minute ago, we are not going to pay any construction costs out of this particular fee. That is not the intention, never has been. The first 5 years, we've honored that exclusively. And we're doing planning, we're doing design, we're doing all the environmental work, we're doing all the preparatory work, but construction will not be part of this this arrangement. Probably costs of of the actual construction, the financing, and other related items will come later, and we're planning on, God willing, and the creek does rise, that we will have partners involved with us. And that we will have these items paid for not by MAGSA landowners, but by those partner contributions. So none of those items are covered by this particular 218 application. Next up. Why Prop 218? It's just
Prop
the way.
218 ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Why Prop 218? Groundwater is best managed locally. That is under the Sigma legislation. In order to do that locally, we can't very well ask the state to provide all the money. So we've taken it upon ourselves. I think it's in our best interest, without a doubt, to manage our water locally. So that means we need to pay our own freight for our own management. What we plan for ourselves needs to be paid for. And the alternative, unfortunately, 4 of our basin mates south of us are facing some interventions by the state. And that's a very expensive prospect. When the state comes down to manage you, it gets expensive. It doesn't get any more efficient, and it doesn't get any more sustainable necessarily, but they will charge you for their time, and it is very expensive. So this is the best way to go. It was in 2018 when the 218 was originally passed, and it continues to be for the next 5 years for MAGSA in the King Subbasin generally. And then MAGSA, we have a clear vision for where we want to go. We're determined to keep up the pace that we're on. So far, knock on wood, success is with us in our subbasin, and it's our intention to continue with that success right into the next 5 years. And I guess I'll hand this back over to the girls so they can let you know how to stay in touch with all of us.
As always, please visit our website for information about all MAGSA related items. Specifically, we have a Proposition 218 webpage where you can find the detailed 5-year fee report along with the English and Spanish notice of the public hearing, which again is on June 7th. If you have specific questions, please email the lovely Crystal Tufanction or call the MAGSA office at the number on the screen there. Again, you can find all of our contact info on our website. And finally, attend the public hearing on June 7th. It's during our regularly scheduled board meeting at the Kerman Community Center at 2 p.m. And that is where we will discuss this, and officially you can share your thoughts on the Prop 218 acreage fee renewal. So now we're going to open up the floor for any questions. If you would like to submit your questions through the Q&A feature, then you can do that now. Or you can unmute yourself and verbally share your questions. So we'll give you a second to do that. And our amazing team is ready to respond to any questions you have.
Okay, let's go. Oh, my gosh. Just kidding. We should have Jeopardy music.
Yeah, that clock
Tick, tick
is,
of the clock.
no, makes me think of the second grade
Oh, there's a question.
silent reading time.
All right, well, Scott doesn't have a question, but some encouragement. Scott says, everything sounds good. Thanks for the nice presentation.
Ooh.
Thanks, Scott, and you're welcome. We're in no rush, so take your time.
We've done this before. Once everybody gets over their shyness, they start to think about it and they start giving some really good questions.
I say we give you guys 1 more minute, and then if we don't receive any further questions, again, contact us through email, phone number, or just drop into the MAGSA office. We've got a very amazing team who will be sitting there. These two general managers are ready to answer any of your questions.
We do get up and move around, but we do sit sometimes.
All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. The presentation will be made available online. Thanks. Bye.
See ya. Oh, there's one. I saw it. It came in at the last
Are you
minute.
serious? Are you joking?
No, okay, see?
Oh, yeah, there is. Well, we haven't left yet,
We haven't left.
in the nick of time.
Wow, you did that. Good.
That was some good timing. Okay, we're not going to end because we have a question from Scott. He asks, you mentioned how many acres are in the MAGSA district. How many landowners are there?
I'm gonna beat around the bush, Scott, because we don't keep track of that specifically. I can tell you that there are about little over 1,200 parcels that make up the 120,000 total acres, but 114,000 accessible acres. I have done the analysis, and there are about 50 landowners who own half of the district, and the rest of the landowners own the other half of the district. It approaches 200. So I believe we're in the between 250 and 300 total number of general landowners, and that's excluding the 2 acre and less that we haven't assessed. Not a specific, precise answer, but a pretty general one. Gives you an idea where we are.
Good job, Matt, catching that.
I saw it. Good ballpark. All right, thanks, Scott. I thought that might be Scott. Okay, we'll start the
farewell.
process again.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Start
Thanks,
going.
everyone.